Back with another album review. It's one we've all been waiting for because today I'm finally going to be reviewing the Great Southern Trendkill from Pantera. It's Pantera's 8th studio album, and it's their 4th and final album to be produced by our good friend Terry Date. Then again, Vinnie Paul helped with producing, mixing, and recording the album. Ulrich Wilde helped with co-recording, while the rest of Pantera were co-producers. The album was recorded at 2 different studios. The first was Nothing Studios in New Orleans, which is where Phil Anselmo recorded the vocals. The other was Chase and Jason Studios in Dalworthington Gardens, Texas, which is where the rest of the band recorded everything else. Recording lasted from October of '95 until February of '96. The album was released on May 7th, '96 under East West Records. It's arguably the most aggressive album from Pantera, since there's a lot of screaming involved on the songs The Great Southern Trendkill and Suicide Note Part 2. The songs The Underground America and Sandblasted Skin are known for having fast tempos and down-tuned guitars. And read that they were played in D tuning while the 6th string was tuned to G flat. Granted, the guitars would sound heavier at H flat, but that's a different story. The album itself is considered to be pretty experimental, since there are ballads and even an acoustic guitar used. Well, we'll get back to that when we discuss the songs. The lyrics even have things about drugs, a flood that ends humanity, anger, and the media, among other subjects. So it's fair to say this is a dark album overall, if you think about it. The album does feature Seth Putnam of the grindcore band Anal Cunt performing additional vocals on the songs The Great Southern Trendkill, War Nerf, 13 Steps to Nowhere, and Suicide Note Part 2. Admittedly, I'm not familiar with Anal Cunt, but I've heard about them. Also, Ross Karpelman plays the keyboard on the songs Suicide Note Part 1 and Living Through Me, Hell's Wrath, but we'll get back to that. The album is primarily centered around groove metal, but there are some elements of thrash metal and even death metal. I've seen a lot of people on Facebook and Twitter claim that this is the best Pantera album. Is this really their best album? Well, let's find out after I discuss the songs. The album starts with The Great Southern Trendkill. Obviously, this song shares the same name as the album. Right out the gate, the song hits a listener with full force with a very aggressive sound. I mentioned earlier that Phil Anselmo's vocals are accompanied by those of Seth Putnam. That's the first song on the album that Seth is featured on. Overall, the song starts the album off perfectly, considering how aggressive it is. It's also the second shortest song on the album, with a runtime of 3 minutes and 47 seconds. Up next is War Nerf, second song to feature Seth Putnam. It's also a very heavy yet aggressive song. You actually have to listen to it for yourself. Phil even calls out the media in the lyrics, and understandably so. It was pretty interesting hearing Phil and Seth going back and forth with the vocals. Now, it sounds like this song is more in the death metal category. We followed up with Drag the Waters. It's actually the first single from this album, and the single was released on May 22nd, '96. I read that Dimebag Darrell said that the song is about, quote, a lifetime of dealing with people that you can't tell, what they're really coming at you for, or what their motives really are. You gotta drag the waters, get to the bottom, and find out the truth. I suppose that's one way of putting it. Darrell even directed the music video that was made for the song, and I'll post a link to it in the description. It's followed up by Tens. The song is pretty heavy considering the fact that it's in the realm of groove metal. I would argue this is among the best songs on this album. After that is 13 Steps to Nowhere. This is the shortest song on the album at 3 minutes and 37 seconds in length. Like most of the songs on this album, it's in the realm of groove metal. I mentioned earlier that Seth Putnam is also featured on this song. The next song is actually a 2-part song called Suicide Note. Part 1 is a power ballad and is longer at 4 minutes and 44 seconds long. Part 2, on the other hand, is more in the thrash metal category, and it's 4 minutes and 19 seconds long. This entire song was released as a single on May 22nd, '96. What's interesting about Part 1 is that Dimebag Darrell actually played a 12-string acoustic guitar on the song. There's going to be a photo on screen of what said guitar looks like. Now, this part also features Ross Carpelman on the keyboard. Now, part 2 brings in Seth Putnam as a secondary vocalist. Obviously, the lyrics discuss methods of suicide, including slitting the wrist. Part 1 talks about drug use, while Part 2 talks about suicide by gunshot. This is a very dark song overall, in case the title didn't already give that away. The next song is Living Through Me, Hell's Wrath. Second and final song on the album to feature Ross Carpelman on the keyboard. The song is more in the thrash metal category, and you notice this if you actually listen to it. Up next is Floods. It's the third and final single on the album. And the single was released on May 22nd, 96. It's the longest song on the album at 3 minutes and at 7 minutes long. In fact, it's the third longest song that Pantera ever made. And it's right behind Cemetery Gates and Hard Lines, Sunken Cheeks when it comes to song length. Rex Brown even said that this song has one of his favorite bass lines. Lyrics even deal with the atrocities of humanity, including war, murder, and sexual assault. Lyrics even contain a plea for God to flood the earth, hence the song's title. And the guitar solo that Daryl performs what many people consider to be his greatest guitar solo. Followed up with The Underground in America. It's more of a thrash metal song considering Phil's vocals and Daryl's guitar riffs. Daryl even performs a guitar solo, and the solo kind of mimics the sound of a violin. It's actually pretty awesome if you ask me. The album ends with Reprise, Sandblasted Skin. You know, this is the second longest song on the album at 5 minutes and 39 seconds long. I personally think this is the perfect song to end the album with. One thing I need to mention is that the Japanese version has a live version of Walk, which was recorded during a live show at the Hollywood Palladium on June 27th, 92. And as you can see, it's not on this version. In 2016, the 20th anniversary edition of this album was released as 2 discs. This one has the regular versions of the songs, while disc 2 contains different mixes of some of the songs, as well as instrumental and even live versions of other songs. Seeing that this album peaked at number 4 on the Billboard 200, and was even certified platinum by the RIAA by selling over 1 million copies in the US. I've also read that this album was met with mostly positive reviews from critics, and rightfully so. There were a few reviews that were in the middle, but the majority were positive. When researching this album, I read that there were tensions between Phil and Selmo and the rest of the band, which is why he recorded his vocals at a different studio. Phil was even accused of racism during a live show in Montreal, when he criticized rap music and said that it, quote, advocates the killing of white people. Though he denied being racist and later apologized, claiming that he was drunk during that performance. He did have a side project around this time called Down, and I will review the material from Down at some point. Tragedy would strike on July 13th, 96, when Phil overdosed on heroin an hour after Pantera performed a live show in Texas. His heart stopped beating for 5 minutes, and paramedics injected him with adrenaline before taking him to the hospital. He did wake up in the hospital where a nurse notified him about the overdose. Phil later apologized to his bandmates the following night and would say that he would stop using drugs. One thing I will say, that it's a good thing that Phil was revived, but we all know the repercussions of drug use. And as I mentioned before, that there's a lot of people who claim that this is the best Pantera album. I think it's because of the way the vocals were recorded, and there's a lot of fast tempos used. As well as some experimentation with this album. As for my opinion on it, I can see why a lot of people really enjoy it. It's very aggressive, the tone is very dark. Hell, I'd argue that the backstory is much darker than the album itself. To answer the question, is this really the best Pantera album? Well, it all depends on who you ask. I personally think it's their second best album, while Far Beyond Driven is what I still think is their best. If you think this is Pantera's best album, then that's fine, because we all have our preferences. Now's the part where I question you. Have you listened to The Great Southern Trendkill? If so, what are your thoughts on it? What's your favorite song from it? Do you think this is really Pantera's best album? Do you think the album's backstory is more interesting than the album itself? Let me know in the comments. If you like the video, be sure to like, share, and subscribe. Be sure to hit the notification bell to notify future uploads. Thanks for watching. I'll be back soon with another review.